Bloomberg 1130.
Well, if you're the big media companies out there in Hollywood, you got a lot of big issues ahead of you, most notably the transition from the traditional distribution system of cable TV and satellites to now this new technology called streaming, and that has a lot of long-term challenges for the industry. More near-term is you got some strikes on your hands. You got your writers striking, some actors striking. Big challenge for Hollywood right now. Let's see kind of what the legal issues are and how they might be resolved. Katie Charleston joins us. She's a founder of Katie Charleston Law. Katie, thanks so much for joining us here. Can you just frame out what the big issues there are between the writers and the studios?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. The main issues that we're looking at between the writers and the actors and the production companies are AI, for one. The writers and actors are concerned with the use of artificial intelligence, which could potentially replace them. At least that's the fear. They are also concerned with residuals, which is a payment structure where typically they would receive residual payments every time a rerun was shown on broadcast television, which is different than what we have today in streaming. And the last main issue is that of compensation. They're looking for a better and complete compensation package with higher salaries and health benefits included.
So I can understand both sides here. I mean, certainly from the creator's perspective, the actors, the writers, this AI risk is just really, you could paint it as existential here. Be that as it may, though, I would think this is something that smart lawyers like yourself could create some language to protect them no matter how the technology changes.
Exactly, and that is really what should be happening. Artificial intelligence and its use in copying or duplicating the likeness of an individual will generally not fly. State law prohibits using the likeness of someone without their permission in general, but there are contract provisions, right? Each one of these writers and actors are able to negotiate their contracts and make sure that terms are in the contract that protect them from the use of their voice or likeness without their consent.
Talk to us about copyright, because I thought copyright is really, for something to get copyright protection, I thought it has to be created by a human. Is that the case, and how does AI fit into that?
That is correct. In fact, there was a recent federal court ruling that upheld a the Copyright Office registration rejection of a piece of art that was generated by AI. And basically, the general rule is that you can only get copyright registration if a work is created by a human. And the production companies themselves are not going to want to use artificial intelligence like ChatGPT or Jasper.ai or any of these other tools to basically replace the actors or writers themselves. Because if there is not human authorship of these works, then the studios will not be able to make any money, right? Because they will not be able to get a copyright, which would then allow them to protect any kind of duplication or derivatives of their works, which brings them profit.
So how about the other stuff that, I mean, writers and actors, they care about the compensation, of course, but they also care about awards, Oscars and things like that. Can artificial intelligence, you can't, something written by AI is not eligible for any awards, is it?
Not as of today. However, I suppose that could change in the future. But as of now, I mean, it is these actual writers and actors, the humans involved, that are nominated and given the awards.
So again, it just seems to this outsider that this is all something that can be negotiated. Why do you think we got to this point where they went on strike, and on strike for getting to be a long period of time now?
Well, there are some things that have happened over the last several months, I think, that basically emotionally charged several groups of people. One being that there were some background actors that have come forward and said that they've been asked to be scanned completely so that they can be really duplicated and used without permission in perpetuity, meaning these actors, their identities will be used without any kind of compensation or terms involved. And so I think that's an emotionally charged trigger point. And I think it's a real fear for these people. You can see the genuine nature of the fear. It's unlikely that will ever be something that's upheld, especially without the consent of the individual. And again, it goes back to contract terms. But There's also, these unions have tend to strike regularly over the years, and I think we're at a point where overall the nation's been touched by inflation, right? And these actors, a group of actors that are sort of at the beginning stages of their career, really are being hit with the emotional charge and the lack of resources and the inflation all at one time. And they are being brought together by a larger group of individuals who are more established in the industry, if you will, these big name actors that are out there, that really they're sort of out of touch with what compensation should look like. And so when you have these two forces joining together along with the emotional triggers, it really will create something like we're facing today with this strike.
Is there, I mean, again, we're multiple weeks into this strike here. Is there any sense in Hollywood how long this will go, when it can be resolved? Because now you're getting to the point where, shooting schedules are being materially adjusted here, and it's real money for both sides.
Sure. I mean, it could go on for quite a while. Warner Brothers Discovery announced this morning that their outlook for profits for the year are down by a projected $500 million based on the strikes. And that sort of would assume that they're predicting that this will go through the end of the year. So, this could continue on. Really, the two sides need to come together and talk. There are viable and reasonable arguments on both sides to be made. You've got these movie studios and production companies on one side where, this is a business that's changing. It's an evolving industry where we're no longer looking at broadcast television where ads are generating these residual payments. We're looking at streaming services like Netflix and Hulu that allow low payment subscription options without commercials. So they are not generating that ad revenue to pay these residual payments. And that overall the industry just needs to come up with a better type of contract, and that could take a while to negotiate.
All right, we'll have to stay on top of this story. Again, major news for the media companies and all the folks that work with them, all the stakeholders, quite frankly, involved in entertainment and content creation. Katie Charleston, she is the founder of Katie Charleston Law, getting us up to speed on some of the legal issues here. Again, it's we saw, as Katie was mentioning, Warner Brothers Discovery warns a $500 million hit to profit.
Thanks for listening to the Bloomberg Markets Podcast. You can subscribe and listen to interviews at Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast platform you prefer. I'm Matt Miller. I'm on Twitter at MattMiller1973.
And I'm Paul Sweeney. I'm on Twitter at PT Sweeney. Before the podcast, you can always catch us worldwide at Bloomberg Radio.